This webinar is going to be geared towards the mechanical discipline. It will consist of items from the MEP productivity pack, as we discussed briefly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just roll through some of our basic over-the-top information to start with of kind of what's in the mechanical side of the MEPPP, just as a quick update for those who haven't really seen too much of it. And also I'm going to take a deeper dive and kind of look at some of these schedules that are out here as well.
On welded equipment. Welding is the most economical and efficient way to join metals permanently. In fact, it is estimated that 50% of the gross national product is produced by welding.
Awesome. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so for those who are not necessarily 100% exposed to the MEPPP, this is the start and opening of the MEPPP. So when you
one of the most important considerations during any welding activity. No job is considered satisfactorily complete if someone is injured. While there are many different types of welding processes, it is important that you understand the potential hazards and take the necessary steps to ensure your safety, no matter what type of welding you perform.
Okay, sorry about that. Having one quick technical difficulty. Okay, so what I am showing here, so this is going to be our opening page. Also, if you go under the Manage tab, this will be our starting view. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of information listed in here. One key piece of information is making sure you have your owner information, your company, and some of that. But also, we have some of these schedules already added to this landing page here. So that way, if you have somebody getting in here who's maybe an engineer or a PM needs some quick information, some of those values are already right here. So we see the design air properties, the design fuel, design water properties, cooling plants, and design properties for rejection water. So those are some of those items that are already kind of pre-bedded in here, and just for your use only. And if you're not necessarily 100% into mechanical, and say you do mechanical and plumbing, or you add electrical in there, so on, you can simply just drag that information onto this view as your startup view and kind of exchange out. Okay. So with the MEPPP, first thing definitely want to go through is we've got our browser organization set here. So there are multiple ways that we show our views, and of the multiple ways, we have a setup here with discipline equals mechanical, and just here's some of the basic information here on how we filter. So, and then we can do our sorting here. So we're not showing other disciplines within this matter. Okay. Now, as I roll through here, these are some of the views that we have out here. So keep in mind, for some of you guys who are a little bit newer to some of the content within the content packs that we have out here, some of this content that is built specifically to add additional items into your schedules. So the way the schedules work is there are shared parameters built into these families purposely in order for that information to be relayed within the schedules. So, and we also have some of that information tied into our user manuals as well. That way people can see some of that information. Now, here's some of the basic views here. This is our current starter project. So when we go to start up our project, we, as some of you guys know, we have a very large starter model. And in that starter model, we have our views, we have our sheets, we have views applied to sheets, we have coordination views, we have riser diagrams. We've got a little bit of everything pre-built in here. And then we also have project setup views as well. So that way, when we go to set a project up, it's already there. So now just to kind of take a look in here at some of what I'm talking about with some of what's in the views. Here's our mechanical side of the world. And this is one of our floor plans. Keep in mind something else that we do that not everybody necessarily does. We utilize design options within our projects. So, and in order for us to get through some of this information, we put that into a design model here. So it's going to be under sample project as primary. And that's because of how we set up some of our models. So we'll have all our symbols, legends. Those are all live under a separate design model. And the idea behind that is to pull that view and apply that to our initial title sheet. Instead of having to draw everything out like we traditionally would do back in the AutoCAD days. So, and then we also have one lines that's dedicated more towards electrical. And there are a couple videos on that and on our website that you guys are more than welcome to take a look at. There's actually a YouTube site for ATG USA that has some of that information. Okay, and then we've also got some test elements and some other stuff that comes up in here. But let's take a look here at just some of the information that we're going to see in some of these ducts and some of these other mechanical families. So here's one of our VAV boxes that we have here. Here's a list of some of the information that you're going to see. So when we're talking about utilizing the content pack that comes with this product, the specific idea is we're trying to save time, and we're trying to not just think within our realm of the industry. So architect, engineering designers for MEP, engineering designers for MEP, contractor. We're trying to think a little bit further outside of that, to where when I click on this VAV box, the first thing you're going to see is we've got power information coming up. So, and then we've got some of this information that talks about airflow, so your CFMs. We've got your FLA input, your MCA, your MOCP inputs. We also talk about levels and offsets and stuff like that. So, and then in this case, when we're looking at one of these pieces of equipment, this one here initially starts with a neck size of 5 inches. Well, if I wanted to follow that to work with the duct that I have currently, it looks like I have a 6-inch duct here. So I'm going to change that neck size by having this default option here. It says neck size input to adjust that to 6 inches. Okay, and well, let's see if it's I can't adjust it. Still working on this whole aspect here. Hang on one second. Let me see if it will take it again. Okay, it was deleted in the central model. So there is an issue with this. Okay, so but the way the family works, you pop in the next size input, which I was just recently doing on a VDC project I was working on, and it will adjust that input for you. So when you're digging through and you're looking at all the information here, so you got your electrical information, you can also call out your information left hand, right hand side. So Those are some options as well. And then coils and everything like that. But as you scroll down, you start to see, here's some of that information that gets kind of built in there. Here's the dimensions, because we have that articulating arm. That way we can move stuff around a lot more freely. And then we've also come now down to our mechanical information, loads, and then some of our identity information to say VAV 1.5 or 1-5 and so on and so forth. Now, having all this information in here, the way this is set up makes that schedulable. So making sure that that information is schedulable doesn't just help out one side or the next. When that model gets passed on from MEP on the design side into the contractor's hands, they have access to all that information with this plan. So when we start taking a look at some of our information that is out here, so I'm going to close up some of these panels here. Here's some of the mechanical. So when we start, for instance, we look at an air terminal schedule. I mean, we've got information out here that is readily available for our contractors. Now, there are a lot of contractors these days who still do stuff by hand or still pop stuff out externally to an Excel doc or manually count everything. But this is definitely an option. This is a way to take a look at what we currently have and then verify that to what our numbers and what our information is. So, and provides a workflow to just kind of assist with making sure that everything in the model matches everything on our set of notes and our documentation that we're looking for. So this is going to be our air terminal master plan right here that we have. So for schedules, and within this plan, we've got a bunch of key information that's out here. And once you start kind of scrolling through, you're going to see, I mean, we've got information down to the site specifically that we're looking for everything from. We've got information that we start moving across that will tell the system type. So if it's a supply air versus an exhaust air, different pieces of information, elevation, quantities, levels. So we can start getting into materials and finishes and stuff like that as well within our master plans here. Utilizing some of those key pieces of information. First of all, it helps so that way, again, you have something to look towards when you get outside of MEP and MEP engineering and inside of manufacturing, but also to make sure when you're sitting down with that customer and you're finding out exactly what they're looking for their spaces and such, you're hitting some of those. And this is a way to kind of call some of that out quickly by having it pre-built into your families, and then also making sure you have schedules put together for some of that as well. And having schedules versus the traditional route of having everything in Excel and then having everything in Revit. What we're trying to do is we're trying to close that gap to where we've got guys who place something in the model, and then once they're done placing something within the model, what they're going to do is they're going to look at the schedule within the model. So, and the way Revit's built, when you place something in the model, it automatically will hit that schedule as long as it's tied together correctly. So, and that involves the back end of building these families and everything accordingly. So, and we personally, we work with Titus on this set here that we have, this set of families, and making sure that we've accounted for some of that information, so that way we can have a full list of schedules. Because as you guys know, I mean, putting together a schedule is it's no easy task, especially, I mean, when you get to that point where projects going out, you're at 95%, 100% CDs, and you need to make sure that thing is 100% accurate, and you're taking care of that information. So in this case, if you guys, as you send out your information, you get your red lines back, or you make red lines in whatever design meetings you may have, or so on and so forth, even in the field for making some of that, those notes in field as it's being constructed, or maybe you're with an integrated group where architect, engineer, and contractor are all under the same roof. That allows everybody to kind of be on board and making sure once we turn this model over to our our customers per se, or our clients, they know what's in there, everything's live and active, and that way when we get it back for that next renovation in 3, 5, 7, 10 years, we have an idea of what's already in there. So, and we're starting to see more and more companies, design firms and contractors with more and more accurate information, because I mean, let's face it, a lot of us get repeat clients on a regular basis that we may have contracts with for 10, 15, 20 years. So it's definitely beneficial to have some of this in there, but also being on the other end of where we just hooked up with this new customer, say a hospital chain, or a state set of colleges, or so on and so forth. And we like to receive information that is usable for us, that we don't have to go digging around and spend half a day or a day looking for it. So that's another benefit as well. So just here's some of that basic information here. When we come over talking about neck size, airflow, core velocity, and pressure and stuff like that, this is going to give us some of that information. We've got some color coding out here just to indicate and look at some of those numbers and so on and so forth. So those are key pieces that we look at as well. And that way, I mean, we can really make sure things pass the sniff test by looking at some of these spaces with some of this color code that's out here. So those are some of those aspects. And then keep in mind, I mean, all this information, we've got some of the back end formulas and stuff built into the family, and also built into Revit as well. And what we're doing is we're making sure these numbers here are automatically calculating within those families. So as they're automatically calculating within those families, we're seeing that in our schedules. So that way we can verify to our information, oh, that's correct, or oh, that's incorrect. And the benefit to that is if we've got good families and good schedules put together, when we've got our drafters working on this, we give them some basic guidance or a little bit more of an understanding of the guidance, and we push them to keep an eye on some of this information, so they can start to identify if it passes the sniff test or not. And then once we push it off down the line, everybody's got a little bit more knowledge, and everybody has a little bit more of an understanding of what's going on within each room and each schedule and everything along those lines. So this is just one of the many different schedules that we have out here. I mean, we also have schedules that are not necessarily for mechanical, but for mechanical as well. That will be consistent of a space schedule. So we are looking here, we've got all our spaces, which we all know that when we're setting up an initial project, we look to the architect's model for their room bounding information. And then we set up our space schedules according to that information. We do know that there can be occasions where things kind of get a little hairy, especially you're in the middle of a project somewhere and they delete a couple walls and have to pop some new walls and rebound their area with having the space schedules and everything put together. That's supposed to automatically push across. So being able to see that information that will pop up in here, which we do have some additional tools within the CTC libraries where you can get the BIM project suite, the manager suite, batch suite. There's even Hive and stuff like that. But there's designated tools to kind of help with seeing some of those changes here. So there's this tool called Model Compare. The idea of Model Compare is it's going to compare two versions of that model. So when we get something from the architect, they don't necessarily give us a bunch of information saying, oh, we changed these specific items. We're going to get maybe a general broad overview word of mouth from them, but we're not going to have 100% down to the science. So this is going to help bridge that gap. And then when we bridge that gap, we can then look in our space schedules and everything and make sure that there wasn't significant change and it's not adjusting our calcs in the long run based upon some of those rooms. So that's kind of an idea of having a space schedule around as well. So some other schedules we have out here, we have some of our fan schedules. So let's pull up one of our fan schedules. And this fan schedule, again, based upon how the family's built, this fan schedule is giving us a bunch of information as well. So we're going to see airflow, design, the minimum inlet, outlet for velocity. We've got our pressure information in here. We've got just a variety of different information. And then all this information that with fan motors, they report back to electrical as well. So those are some of the benefits within these schedules. And when you're working within this group, that information will push to the multiple disciplines that it's supposed to as you're kind of working there. And that helps out both in design and then it helps out on the contracting side as well. So previously I've been working a hospital project down in the Texas area. And within that project, we're utilizing some of the schedules internally to just kind of verify what's in there to make sure when we're sending stuff out, we're not missing anything that came with the initial design model, and we're patching up any gaps that came in with that project. So schedules have definitely been very, very helpful for us in multiple ways. So, and then here's some of the information within this. Here's also the motor information as well, which you guys in mechanical, you guys keep your motor list, and then you have to report that information over to your electrical team. So your electrical team, if you guys are in the same model, or even depending on how you guys link your models together, can pull all that information across with these schedules and utilizing these types of families. So this is some of the information dedicated more towards utilizing schedules for some of the general mechanic. But if you scroll down in here, we don't just talk about some of the general mechanic or mechanical stuff in here. We also go into mechanical piping as well. So let me see if I've got anything in here. I do. So piping system summary. So here's some of your piping systems. Here's your length of piping, the volume that's being pushed through, your pipe diameters for some of those piping. And then this is your system abbreviation here. So this kind of gives you the information on that piping. And as you go down, you can see some of that, which when we were back in that specific view, let's see if I can go back to the overall view. You guys notice as well, I mean, we've got everything color coded and everything along those lines. That's already taken care of based upon some of the family information. So duct systems, we've already got some of that information already in here, and that works for piping as well. So mechanical piping and plumbing. So those are some benefits as well with how we set up our systems. And then naturally everything's got multiple tags surrounding it. So here's the tag information. So what you guys see here in these your mechanical piping schedules, we have several tags that you can also use to tag some of these pieces of information. So if I wanted to drop this tag in here to pull this information, the benefit that I've been utilizing lately is with some of my shop drawings that I've recently pushed out. I've had to account for top of duct, bottom of duct, so on and so forth. Well, this is a top bottom of duct family right here. So let me see if I've got something out. So this is the one I've been using the most. So it gives me my system. It gives me my duct size, and then it gives me my bottom of duct elevation. And this is work for my active construction project where we're pushing shop drawings as they're putting stuff up in the ceilings. So on a renovation project. So there are plenty of benefits, and this is pulling directly out of this family as well, which will also push that information directly into one of these schedules out here, dedicated towards the mechanical duct. So, and you can just see the vast majority of the schedules that we have here. So that definitely helps push some of that information over to your contractors, as well as any of your PMs and designers and so on and so forth. So let's take a look here. So here's our design motor list. So here's some of the information on the motor list. So I just want to roll through some of these so that way you guys can see. This talks about our air handling units. We got a boiler, ceiling fans. We can even include some of that information out here. An ERU, the energy recovery unit, fan. We got the pump, rooftop units, unit heaters, VAV boxes, and water heaters. So these are already pre-built within the MEP productivity pack. The benefit to the productivity pack with the content pack is it's an awesome system to have to start, especially if you guys are you're working 6 days a week, 50, 60 hours a week, just kind of going and going, and you can't get out from underneath to really set up your back end and stuff like that. Having the ability to latch on to some of this information and kind of hit the ground running has helped a lot of firms that I've worked with in the recent past. And we've trained firms to this. And then what you can do is when you guys start to see that light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe a little bit of time where you guys can focus on looking at what you currently have for your libraries and such, you can then take a look at what you currently have that came with the MEPPP, and then you can build upon that and make that yours. So if you guys use different families or you work with different manufacturers and you want all this information here, you can do that. And that's a benefit, because you're seeing this is what's embedded in a family. This is what's embedded in a schedule. This is what's embedded in tags. Well, I need a different style tag, or I need a different schedule for this one-off scenario, that one-off scenario, this client or that client. This gives you some of that information and kind of gives that groundwork to show you how to put some of that stuff together. So that's a benefit there that you guys can definitely look towards. And that I've actually utilized that looking at not just the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, but also looking at some of the low voltage stuff, looking at AV stuff as well, because I've done some of that as well, and there's not necessarily a lot of content out there in that case. But I mean, for mechanical and such, I mean, these are needed schedules, and most mechanical schedules that I've looked at, even the ones done on scratch paper, to the ones that I'm used to seeing coming off of an Excel doc, they're huge pieces of information, and essentially we're doing it multiple times. So we're trying to answer that question and answer that workflow to kind of get some of that out of somebody keying and get that into, I place a family, this information populated. So it does require a little bit different workflow, a little bit different training aspect. So when you get a new drafter in there, because we all know that a lot of drafters come out of school, and MEP is definitely not the first thing that they think they're going to start with. I mean, everybody wants to be an architect, or everybody wants to be a CM or a PM, or so on and so forth, and everybody wants to put big buildings up, but they don't necessarily think about coming out with a mechanical or plumbing or electrical or actual construction type of experience in any one of those trades as well. They come out with the drafting, so they know how to use Revit basic, they know how to use CAD basic, they know some of the linking stuff, but they don't necessarily have the full scope of, okay, so we're going to have VAV boxes supplying a room that has this much CFM, and we need this size duct or this size register, or we need a supply inlet, we need an exhaust outlet, we need an air handling unit that's this size to work with this building. These are some of those stats, and having all your stuff kind of linked in there and letting them see that and interact with that definitely will help them grow faster. So it has helped tremendously over my time, kind of learn as well, because I came out similar as a lot of these other people with a degree in the programs and not necessarily a degree in any specific trade or industry. So it's been a benefit, and that's how we've kind of worked things from that point on. So let's take a look at some of these other ones. So here's let me see if I have anything for chilled water. So here's chilled water. Some of these other families out here. So we've got some of the flow information. We've got some of the information tied to the fan. Here's the motor information here. So, and this stuff just gets keyed right into your family as you place it on the floor plan or sailing plan, however you guys set your plans up. Secondary fan, stuff like that. Let's see, so chill beam, air curtain. So these are, here's your cooling coil information. So, I mean, you got your some of your additional air side information here. You got your water side information. So it's interesting how much you guys can program into Revit, and how powerful Revit is. It just, we all have to build it, and we all have to keep pushing the industry forward. So let me see if I've got a couple others out here. Here's another schedule as well. This is the let's see, water heater. Let's go down and see if I have anything. Here's our fan information here. So see, we got the ID, so on and so forth. And with the manufacturer and model number and stuff to the series, for some of you firms that are more on the consulting side of the world and not necessarily tied to a specific construction firm or something like that, like a mechanical subcontractor, so on and so forth. Some of these manufacturers, you could very well just delete the information off and use them generically, and then in your spec the three that you prefer. So I've seen that done. We've had that conversation a couple times with a few of our firms that have purchased this specific productivity pack, and that's how they're getting around some of that. Otherwise, I mean, you guys could set up and almost duplicate some of these families to fit the manufacturing needs that you guys need. That way you hold the information that's in that family, and then you just adjust your geometry, and then you adjust your manufacturing information to the family that you create, and you just pull all the rest of this stuff that's already pre-built in there over. So it's been helpful for quite a few firms as well. So, and you can see some of that information. We've even got things in here for hoods when it comes to commercial kitchens and stuff like that. I mean, we really tried to think as much out of the box as possible, just because there's so many applications that Revit gets used for, and trying to do what we can. And we've all been in the situation where, I mean, we don't have enough time to get on through a project, much less put out the fires that come throughout the day. And that's why our guys who come from the industry put this thing together, because we felt the pain, we've done the time, and there had to be a better solution. So we created that better opportunity and that better solution. So here's some of the zone information out here as well. So just kind of rolling through some of this. If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to throw them out there, and I will I'll do my best to address some of those pieces of information. And for the next couple of minutes, I'm just going to kind of roll through some of these so that way you guys can see a little bit of what's out here. So, and if I'm going too fast, feel free to slow me down or stop me. So, and in this case, I mean, this is our zone information schedule. So this gives us information directly out of the model. We've got some of our zones. Here's our VAV information and what it covers. So the square footage, occupied volume, perimeter. Here's some of the calculations to that. For our supply load, for our cooling load, our heating load. And then we've got a couple other options here. So if we need a humidification set point, or so on and so forth, that information is out here as well. So the best way to honestly, Adam, find out that information is within the families itself. That information is set up as a parameter, and that parameter actually has the calculations and the that whole setup directly in there. So that would be us kind of diving into the actual family itself, and that will tell us what some of those parameters are. Also, that information as well is tied into our user manual also, and that user manual has a lot of calculations in there as well. So we put all that information out here for you guys to see, and I could just kind of give you an upfront view of that here real quick. So it's not anything pretty, but these are the pieces of information. These are the equations that are driving those calculations. So that's how you can see some of this information. It's extensive. So, and naturally, Revit has some things that we've all been made aware of that don't necessarily work as well, calculation point. So we've tried to kind of override through some of that stuff, but certain things just don't necessarily make it past that. So we've had to adapt a little bit, but this is what drives those calculations here, is having this information. This is built within the family. So let me go see if I can pull a family up for you to show you some of that. 1 second here. Going back to Revit. You're welcome. Okay, so actually, there is the wrong one. So when we're talking about supply air, for instance, this is how we've set this one up. Here's an if statement. And then Revit has something on the back end where it calculates that. So, and then here's for exhaust airflow, some of that information for equipment arrangement. Here's some of that. So this is some of the information. When we get down, let's go down into dimensions. What's the next area? All right, so flow information. So here's some of the information that comes up for flow. Supply, so fan description, supply airflow. It's a lot of information out here. And we had guys who, this is what they do, is they specialize in if-then statements, they specialize in family creation, they specialize in specific building and coding and stuff like that. So that's what set this up, was guys who dig way deeper into this. Guys are a lot smarter than me when it comes to some of this information. So we've also got tables out here as well that we look into also. So those are some benefits also. And that's how some of this stuff is put together. So does anybody at this point have any questions? I'm going to get out of the air handling. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody typing or anything along those lines. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to get in touch with your sales guy, get in touch with us online. Check out our HEG website, our YouTube site, and drop a line, let us know what you think. And I mean, we'll do our best to kind of answer that question and put you through to somebody who can very well help you if you guys need any assistance or anything along those lines. So I would like to thank everybody for showing up today and sitting here and listening to my presentation today on our mechanical schedules in the MEPPP. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful upcoming weekend.